Danny Flexent here for SecondsOut. Delighted to be joined by boxer, promoter Ben Shalom. Ben, how are you?
Very well. Good afternoon, evening, morning. What is it?
It's afternoon. I always get asked for the time when I do interviews. It's fine. Big show coming up. Less than 2 weeks to go now. Richard Riakporhe had to juggle it around at short notice after injuries to both Fabio Turchi and Dion Juma's opponent, Mikhail Lawal. How did you manage to get that agreed so quickly?
We had so many problems with this show, I can't tell you. Fabio Turchi pulled out with an injury about a couple of weeks ago. It's devastating for Richard. He was his sort of IBF eliminator, really good for his rankings. Felt like it put him in the number 2 spot in their rankings. So unfortunate. And then Mikhail Lawal pulled out, and the obvious move was, will Richard fight Dillon? And the problem is, it's almost a bit of a lose-lose for Richard. He's fighting one of the most avoided guys in the British cruiserweight division, and for what? You know, rankings-wise, for world title-wise, I'll be honest, it doesn't do much, but he understands it's his chance to headline. It's a big fight, and he'll probably have more people watching this than would have watched, you know, Fabio Turchi. I think British boxing fans are really interested in this fight, so it's worked out well. But I'm just happy that Richard has done, you know, taken the fight. It shows a lot about him. He's beaten a lot of the domestic guys already, and hopefully this will be another one, but it's going to be a tough fight, and Dion's really confident. I mean, he's been calling out for this fight, you'll know, for a couple of years now. So for him to get this opportunity on a big stage, it's a big British cruiserweight fight, and we're looking forward to it. And since it's been announced, the ticket sales have gone completely differently to what Riakporhe Turchi was, and I think that's what fans want to see, 2 British guys going at it that they know. And yeah, excited for March 26th.
Great stuff. Who should we be most excited about on the undercard? You're not allowed to list everyone.
Well, Mikhail Lawal came out, which was, you know, I was gutted about. It was his opportunity for a British title. We've been with him for a long time, and Dan Aziz, our new signing, will now fight. Actually, he'll fight Matthew Tinker. People might not know Matthew, but Matthew beat Dan Aziz in the amateurs. He's unbeaten. He's been training over in New York, struggling for opportunities in the US, and so that's actually a big British fight as well. And again, a risk for Dan, but it's good to get him out. He'll be chief support. Adam Azim steps up. He'll be fighting Conor Marsden in his 3rd fight, the Southern Area champion. Says a lot about him. He wants to be a world champion by 22, so he has to do these kind of things. And then Caroline Dubois on the card, Chris Congo's on the card, debuting for us, Zach Chelly, Joe Pigford, all stepping up now. So I'm not going to list everyone because I'll get in trouble if I miss a few out, but it's shaping up, and we've got the English title, welterweight English title as well, between Scarf and Louis Green. So it's an exciting card now, and I think, yeah, as I say, the changes, I think with Dan Aziz and the Riakporhe Juma fight has actually changed this card into one that's really interesting now for British boxing fans, rather than just stepping stones for our guys.
What else have you got in the pipeline in terms of shows, particularly kind of April, May sort of time, because we know what's coming up before then?
Week after, we have Savannah Marshall in her world title defence, hopefully the one before Clarissa Shields. Florian Marku will fight Chris Jenkins on that same card, which is a big fight for Florian. That's in Newcastle. Then we've got the tournaments that we had to bring back. We've had a big February with big shows, but we promised we'd invest in the grassroots, and the board were talking to us. The tournaments were always a big part of what we did. Had such a successful time in Liverpool with Corey Gibbs winning that we've got April 16th in Coventry, May 21st then in Sheffield in the cruiserweight division. So those 2 will be out, and then we've got a massive show on May 7th that we're about to announce in the next couple of days, and hopefully that brings us back to sort of our big main events. We're hoping to have a big May, June, and I think this month is about giving our fighters good fights, making sure. We've had a lot of complaints about the undercards, and being honest, and you know, we've invested so much in the main events, we really want to invest in the full cards now, and we're expecting a big May, June, and looking forward to it. It's exciting, and boxing is flying.
You preempting criticism and responding to it before I've even asked. I'm proud of you. May the 7th, a massive show. Give us a hint.
I can't really, because I promised contractually. I think, I think on the undercard criticism that people have to realise, we started on October 2nd. Our first show was October 2nd. We've got a completely new stable. We have to build them, and now you're starting to see them in competitive fights, and starting on March 26th. And May 7th is a big one for us, and we're seeing some new signings coming over. We've got some big signings in the next week or two that I think will shock a few people. across the board headliners and new fighters. So it's early days and it's exciting, and the main events have been great, and we expect the cards to just get better and better. And I think people can see how hard we're working, and the team is gelling really well, and we're all working extremely hard to do what we can. And yeah, it's the start of a very busy year, and we've got off to a good start.
Although you can't tell us who, will it be a world title fight or something of that nature?
Yeah, we expect a world title fight on that card. We expect to have similar events in the end of May and June as well, and so it's looking good. I don't want to say too much because I've got contracts and things like that to get through, but yeah, it's looking good. It's a great schedule, and I think we're seeing it from every broadcaster right now, which is great, and we expect ours to be very competitive.
And let me take you back to Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall, as I'm sure you would have been expecting. When you were on air and Adam Smith, you talked about there should be an inquest. Yes. And Adam Smith turned around immediately and said, "Oh, you'll deal with that, Ben," or something of that nature. Were you a bit surprised that it was immediately put on your toes?
To be honest, no. He tries to keep us honest. He wants the best for the sport, Adam, and he sees it in the same way we do. And no, it was a tough thing to take, especially I'm a new promoter, and it was like the first time we've been thrown into such controversy. And I was sat there. Usually, I'm sat there as a fan, and so and sometimes when you sat ringside, you don't know if you've seen it right and whatever. And I reacted very quickly, but I'm glad I did. And I think there's still so much more need to be done. Even I was watching on Saturday night, and I saw the Sandy Ryan scorecards, and then even the Mark Leach scorecards, and there's just so much room to sort of improve on the judging side. And I saw obviously the board have done what they've done with Ian John Lewis, but I think there's something inherent there that we can improve on, and we're about to put proposals together. We are at the moment, and we wanted to wait for the board's decision first, but we've got the support of Sky, and we expect to put something that they, I think Robert is open to new ideas, and maybe he just needs the support and the wherewithal to be put forward to do it. And so working very closely with Sky on the technology side and what we can do in the studios, and whether people can be in editing suites, and whether open scoring can be introduced as well. So we're really passionate about that, and I expect to see plans come out in the next few weeks. And hopefully we can get the board interested in them and see where we can go from there. But I don't think it's about Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall anymore. I want to be clear on that. I feel really bad for Josh in terms of the attention it's brought to him and the abuse that it's brought to him, and that was never the intention. But similarly, Jack Catterall is extremely aggrieved right now, and we just want to avoid those situations happening. Like, we're all fans of the sport, and that'll be the focus for us, and I expect things to maybe start to change. It was so high profile, you've seen such a reaction that, yeah, fingers crossed with the support of us and Sky that we can get somewhere.
Now, something that's attracted a lot of attention recently, not specifically around Boxer or Sky, is pay-per-view. Particularly because DAZN have now introduced a pay-per-view strand when they originally burst onto the scene declaring pay-per-view to be dead, as I'm sure you know. What do you make of the rationale that Matchroom and Eddie Hearn have used to explain the decision to add pay-per-view, that the price of Canelo Alvarez, for example, 5 years ago, or whenever it was DAZN launched, is not the same now, and the only way to make the biggest fights is with pay-per-view?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. What they do and how they charge for their fights is completely different. It's a different model. They can do what they want. I mean, when I used to watch Sky, there was pay-per-views all the time, and different pay-per-views, whether Dillian Whyte or it. We have tried to start our tenure on Sky and try and put big fights on Sky Sports main event and try and invest as much as we can. We do feel like we perhaps have the smallest budget out of the three promoters, and so we have to work incredibly hard to make sure our non-pay-per-view events are competitive. But at the end of the day, everyone wants to see the big fights happen, and the big fights demand a lot of money, and if they need to do what they need to do to make them happen, then who am I to judge? It's their business model, it's their plans. Saturday night was a great night for them. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was an amazing fight. I texted Frank Smith afterwards congratulating him. I really enjoyed it, and yeah, hopefully we see as many fights not on pay-per-view across all the platforms, but when they have to be on pay-per-view, it has to be, and we know that position. We had it with Khan Brook. There was no way that couldn't be pay-per-view, and they'll have their own reasons, and I think it's up to the fans what they want to buy, what they don't want to buy, and what product they like and what they don't. So I don't think that one is necessarily anything to do with me.
How much input do you have at Sky with Boxer in terms of what goes on pay-per-view, Sky Sports box office, and what doesn't?
Quite a lot. It's a collaborative process. Obviously, they have 10, 15 years of data and experience as to what has done well for them. But when we came in, they can see how much of the budget we're investing to try and keep things off pay-per-view. You know, big fights are inevitably going to, you know, the really biggest ones are inevitably going to be on pay-per-view. But Eubank Williams, Taylor Cattrall, I don't think we'd have seen that in previous times, not on pay-per-view, or maybe those in-between fights that aren't pay-per-view but are just incredibly great main events. They're the hardest ones to make on Sky because of the budget. But we're doing our best to make sure those fights do happen, and we work with Sky every day. They have to hit certain amount of pay-per-view sometimes to fund boxing. It is a business that we have to reinvest in the sport, and so we've got to choose the right ones, the ones that we really think are going to perform. And we work closely with Adam Smith on deciding what we think those are.
And with that in mind, Eddie Hearn, sorry to bring him up again, but he said that the next Anthony Joshua fight will likely be on Sky Sports box office. Yeah. Would you have any involvement in that, given it's a different promoter but still the broadcaster you're partnered with?
Well, to be honest, I'm desperate for that to be on Sky. It helps the whole broadcast. It helps us reinvest in boxing on our platform. It helps us reinvest in the budgets that we have. AJ on Sky, he's always been on Sky. I want him to stay on Sky regardless of whether we're promoting him or not. It's important for the channel. And it means, as I say, it means our fight nights are even better. And involvement-wise, no. Obviously, we're across it. We know what's going on. We get on well with 258. We have fighters with 258 as well. So you might see our fighters on those undercards and things like that. So I'm sure there's going to be ways we can work together, which we have no problem with. And Anthony Joshua on your own platform, I mean, every platform wants that. And so I've always expected him to stay with Sky. I expect him to stay with Sky's next fight and all his fights after that. And they have a great relationship. And we are here to support, and hopefully we'll get involved. But Eddie Hearn is the promoter of Anthony Joshua, and that's how it is.
Now, a big heavyweight fight that's not going to be on Sky Sports box office but is pay-per-view is Tyson Fury and Dillian Whyte. You had some involvement early on in the negotiations. Knowing Whyte as you do, what do you make of his continuing absence from the pre-fight media events? Is it mind games? Is it that he's so focused on his training? How do you explain it?
I don't think it's mind games. I think it's genuinely still upset that he's on 20%, regardless of whether it's 8 million, 12 million, 15 million. He's still earning 20%, and I don't think he ever thought that was fair or that was ever what was right. But that was a WBC position, so I do feel a little bit for Frank and Bob, because at the end of the day, they've made a bid, they've won, they've outbid.
They did push for the split, though, to be 80-20.
It's not their decision, is it? Just as Eddie and myself maybe would say it should be more, they're representing Tyson and their job is to get him as much money. WBC are the arbitrators at the end of the day. It's been called as 80-20. I can see why Dillion's not going. He's not got any incentive to. You know, regardless of what people might say, he's focused on his fight. He wants to win the fight. Why is he going to put any undue stress and pressure on his promotion? I don't know. They've got some issues, I'm sure. Dillian and Frank have never seen eye to eye or got on. So genuinely, he probably just sees why should I do any favours? Obviously, we'd love to be seeing part of the promotion, but I actually, whether it makes a difference or whether it doesn't, I don't know. Tickets sold pretty well. So I don't know, but I can see both sides.
After that fight's out the way, is there a future where we might see Dillian Whyte back on Sky Sports?
Yeah, I hope so. He's always been on Sky. He actually never had a fight in the end because of what happened with Wallin. He never actually fought not on Sky. So, yeah, again, same with Anthony Joshua. I think the biggest fighters do want their box office, especially the British guys, on Sky. I think it's the strongest platform, and that is just how it's been. And they've got the huge promotional vehicle, and Dillian has a great relationship with Sky and now ourselves. So, yeah, fingers crossed. I hope so. Obviously, he's got the biggest fight of his life coming up, so I think he'll be focused on that, and he'll have to see how he comes through. But I think he's going to do well, Dillian. I think people are underestimating him, and he's so focused for this fight, and he's been focused on this fight for a long time, and I wouldn't underestimate what he can potentially do against Tyson Fury.
Now, just before I let you go, and this is something I've talked to Adam Smith about a number of times, you've had this relationship between Boxer and Sky for, 9 months now, maybe 10 months. How do you assess it so far if you were grading it on a curve?
Honestly, I think we're going to be biased, but I think it's been incredible. Like, how many promoters have broken into the setup in Britain in the past 10, 15, 20, 25 years? And our first show was October 2nd, so it's less than 6 months. We had no stable. We've attracted a lot of fighters so far, fighters that we think are the future in the British sport, and also put on some major shows. Our first box office event, 2 massive fight nights, main events already this year, and tournament's been successful. I think people enjoy what we're doing, they like what we're doing, and I think people have to understand it's early days for us. We have a massive goal, 4-5 year goal. We've got a long-term deal with Sky, and I think a lot of fighters are turning their heads and want to now be on the platform again. I think from where Sky Sports Boxing was perceived to be in the summer of last year, I mean, a lot of people were even saying Sky Sports Boxing's dead. You know, people have short memories. At that point, it's dead. Now it's always been the biggest platform. It's obvious. It's strong. You know, this has been a result of a lot of hard work for us. Genuinely, huge amount of hard work internally with Adam, but also with the team. And we were waiting for this moment for a long time, and we think it's going really well. We expect it to get better as well, and that can only be good for the sport. And only good for competition as well.
Ben, really appreciate your time.